So please join me in welcoming Marc. Look forward to your talk.
Thank you. It's a great intro. I think the most factually accurate thing that we've heard or we're going to hear today is that behind every great entrepreneur is a great partner. So huge shout out there. All right, so for those of you that do know me, you know what I really love to do is rant. I'm a ranter. Like if I have the opportunity to go on a tangent about something, that's in my element. So I have a lot of talks that I have structured that I usually give in these sorts of settings. And the one that I think would have been most relatable to this would have been a talk on motivation, on how I feel that the number one skill an entrepreneur can develop is mastering their motivation and how to engineer motivation levels. But I really wanted to talk to the student body, and I realized I only had 20 minutes, and the lecture was called A Lecture on Entrepreneurship and Launching a Startup, so that didn't go really, very well together. So I got to ask a question. How many here people have heard of ChatGPT? Okay, perfect. This is going to be good. All right, that works out. So what I want to do is I want to go down a rabbit hole. I don't exactly know where we're going to end, but I want to share my thoughts on where I think the future of business is going. And a lot of these are still being formulated in real time in terms of how I'm deploying my resources and the strategies that I'm implementing. But I want to share them with you because I think that that'll be the best and most holistic way that I can talk about entrepreneurship and launching a startup. So the way that I'm going to do this is to understand where we're going. We need to have an understanding of where we've been. And to do that in 20 minutes is going to be tough. So I'm going to kind of bucket a lot of things together and try to talk about them as simply as possible. And then we've got the Q&A after. So if anybody wants to double tap on any of those things, that'll be the time. So my thoughts on business are as follows. We've just come out of a golden era of business. If you started a business, since when? 2013, there has been a very, very, very distinct playbook in how you can grow and scale a company. And a lot of that has been enabled with the internet, obviously, but it doesn't matter what your business is. It doesn't matter if your business was software sales, if it was a physical product like something like True Local, if you're selling mobile massage therapy. At the end of the day, what you're doing is you are taking your offering and you're putting it online through a website. That really has been fundamentally game-changing. And people have realized that you can grow businesses faster than ever before. You know, back before the days where you really used to have a relationship with mainstream media companies to get your ads on the air, on the radio. Everything changed when that happened. So let's make the assumption you have a good product, because we can spend an entire semester talking about how to actually launch a good product. But let's make the assumption you have a good product, you're putting it online. There's 3 pillars that you would look at in terms of simplifying the game plan for how to run a successful business for the past 10 years. And that starts with, number 1, drive traffic. Okay? It's that simple. You need to drive as much traffic as possible to your website. Doesn't matter what your product is, doesn't matter what your website is. At the end of the day, you are driving traffic to your website. Now look, there's like a million mini games that we can play in how complex driving traffic can be. All right, so what's the quality of the traffic? What's the cost of the traffic? What's the legitimacy of the traffic? We could spend, once again, an entire lecture talking about that. But at the end of the day, your job is to drive as much traffic to your website as possible. Okay? From there, what ends up happening is you've driven all this traffic to your website, and the job of your website is to try and convert as much traffic as possible. You're driving all this traffic, so if your website isn't converting this traffic, what's the point? And of course, there's a lot of really boring technical ways that you can improve the conversion rate of your website. It's called conversion rate optimization. Once again, an entire course on that. But to simplify it, you can technically increase the conversion rate of your website by doing things like making sure the website is user-friendly, making sure the website is fast, making sure that the website is providing a reason for people to leave their email, whether you're trying to convert the actual action, so you're selling a course, you're selling a subscription, you're selling a product, or whether it's just I want to capture someone's email so I can target them later. At the end of the day, your job is to convert as many people as possible. So there's the technical side of it. And then really at the end of the day, if you want to know if your website's doing a good job converting, it'll be a really good litmus test as to whether or not you even have a good product or a good business in the first place. Because it doesn't matter how much technical conversion rate optimization you do. If your product sucks, you're screwed. So pillar 1, drive traffic. Pillar 2, make sure that your website is actually converting that traffic. And pillar 3 is once you actually have these customers, you need to make sure that you have some sort of loop, some sort of unique experience or initiative that is making it so that these customers stick around. You've got to do it through things like loyalty programs. You do it through things like investing in consumer experience. You do it through things like having a great brand that makes it so people want to talk about the product that you have. There's a million and one different ways that we could talk about how to create these sort of retention loops, all right? So 1, you've got a pillar. The first pillar, drive traffic. 2, convert that traffic on your website. 3, make sure your customers stick around. That's it. It's simple. All right, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's simple. There's a big difference. So if you could master that textbook in the very precise ways that it takes to master every single one of those pillars, you could scale a company like never before. Like literally for the past 10 years, you can grow companies faster than has ever been possible. So it's been great. The problem with that, though, is that everything is changing. And if you try to use that playbook today, I don't think it's going to work. You can get to a certain level of success, but in my opinion, business models are changing. And really what's happening is that we have all of these new tools available to us. Well, I'll just call it, it's AI, all right? So you're probably sitting there rolling your eyes, being like, all right, another guy preaching about AI, okay, here we go. But look, that doesn't discount the fact that it's here. And I think that the best analogy I've seen for how to describe the relationship with AI and what's happening is from Naval Ravikant. He's this, pretty much like a luminary in the business space. You probably should give him a follow if you're an entrepreneur or want to get into business. But he said that AI and ChatGPT is the calculator of copywriting. It's the best way to look at it. So you can be the person who sits back and criticizes the calculator because it's taking away our ability to critically think and apply skills that we feel we should have, or you can use it to augment and enhance what you're already doing. So everyone's all enamored and excited about ChatGPT, and it's amazing. Like if you've used ChatGPT for anything, it's so easy. It is something that sounds so complex, but they did this amazing job of having this interface that allows you to just ask it a question and receive a response. And the better you get at asking it questions, the better your responses end up being. It's really exciting. Now, some people will criticize it and say, okay, there's this flaw and there's that flaw. Like, yeah, it came out 3 months ago. Let's give it a break. But I think that a lot of people are missing the real magic of what's going on here. I think. Gotta throw that out there. To me, ChatGPT is a product, but the people who made ChatGPT, OpenAI, they're not a product. And in my opinion, their product isn't ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a marketing tool. OpenAI, in my opinion, is a platform. And it's very similar to the way that the App Store is not an app. The App Store is not an app. The App Store is a platform in which people develop, let's say, a product, which is an app, and then that eventually, that product became a business. And in my opinion, that's what's happening with OpenAI. So the reason, in my opinion, that you're seeing every other day on LinkedIn a carousel about, look at all these new ChatGPT products. ChatGPT is changing the world. If you're not on ChatGPT, what are you even doing with your life? What's the point? is because OpenAI is making it so that anybody can access the technology of AI. You can build a product on top of the AI engine they've already created. I don't know shit about AI. Are you kidding me? I don't code. I'm not technical. But I can go spin up a business tomorrow using OpenAI's platform that they've created. And what's happening is you're seeing this new business model emerge where people are creating hyper-specific AI models using OpenAI's platform. Once again, it's like building an app on the App Store. All these apps are different, but they're also similar, whatever, but people are going ahead and building on top of it and creating value. So what's happening right now is that people are building these, let's call it ChatGPT for X, ChatGPT for this, ChatGPT for that. And really all they're doing is taking OpenAI and rebuilding on top of it. And believe it or not, it's simpler than you think. This sounds complex, and it sounds crazy, but it's really not. And the same way analogy I'll use is, if you've used ChatGPT, you would think that using AI is very complex, but if you use ChatGPT, it's not. So previously, where it was very difficult, you used to have to have this deep technical knowledge of how to code to build an app. Now, you can really partner with someone who just has a very basic knowledge and understanding of how to use an API and build a hyper-specific version of ChatGPT for any particular niche. So look, the general one, got a 5-minute warning? I don't know, I'm gonna try. Long story short, what's happening right now, the business model is that people are going ahead and taking ChatGPT and creating ChatGPT for X. And they're identifying these very interesting niches. The more specific, the more niche you can identify, and then create an AI model for that specific niche, the better. So for example, let's use CrossFit, because CrossFit people, all they want to do is talk about CrossFit. It's amazing. So ChatGPT exists. You go ahead and use ChatGPT for CrossFit, it's not going to help you. But you build an app over the weekend that can retweak ChatGPT to provide you with a WOD every day, a workout of the day, or provide you with some sort of stretching recommendations that are based on the workout you've done. It sounds complex, but it's really not. So what I think is happening here is people are finding tremendous value in creating AI tools, taking AI tools and deploying them in niche markets. And I truly believe that right now, you can build a $1 to $5 million company in the next 12 months. Like in 12 months, you could have a $1 to $5 million company just by taking OpenAI, building a hyper-specific app on top of that, and then charging $9.99 a month, or 10 to 20 bucks a month, whatever you want to charge for it. And that's a great opportunity, especially for students. Because no, it's not this game-changing business, but it is getting you involved and giving you experience in this new technology. This is the way things are going. There's no denying it. But the unique thing about this, in my opinion, is that this is only going to last for the next 6 to 8 months. If you build today, you can have a $1 to $5 million company at the end of the year if you execute well. But in 8 months, everybody's gonna dive in. Everybody's gonna realize that all of these AI tools you're hearing about, where you're like, damn, did everybody start building on AI at the same time and now everybody's launching the same AI products? No. What's happening is people are realizing, oh wait, I can just use OpenAI to build a hyper-specific AI product. So you've got 6 to 8 months to build this, because what's gonna happen is everybody's gonna pile in and it's gonna get saturated. But really what's gonna happen is that all of the big players, Microsoft and all these people that are investing in this, Google of course, are just gonna integrate AI into all the products you're already using. Browsers are gonna have AI plugged in, Outlook, Gmail is gonna have AI plugged in, Photoshop's gonna have AI plugged in. Really, we're gonna go from a world of clicking to edit a line or clicking to edit a video and dragging and this and that to, hey, please shorten this clip by 10 seconds. Hey, please make this clip more exciting for whoever my audience is, and they'll do it for you. That's where we're going. So you've got 6 to 8 months to take this opportunity and try to play in this new space that is completely accessible to really anybody, in my opinion. And it reminds me an awful lot of social media. I'll explain why. The people who took advantage of getting involved in social media at an early day, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, the people who went in there were able to get followers like that. And I don't know if you guys are trying to get followers online nowadays. It's like pretty much impossible. You gotta have an interesting story. You gotta post content every single damn day. It's a rat race. It's very difficult to try to get followers. But in the early days, if you went in there and tinkered around, you could have garbage content and you would get tons of followers. So those people that were in there hanging around, playing in that space, not only benefited from getting a lot of followers early on, similar to the way that if you were to go and build an AI product today, you could get all of this revenue coming in from people that you're providing value to in a niche. They also were rewarded on the fact that when everybody did dive in, their followers went up even more because they were the ones who already had a ton of followers. And that didn't just give them a shit ton of followers. Let's be honest here. I've done a lot of different businesses across a lot of different spaces, and it blows my mind the red carpet that gets rolled out to a 14-year-old child with 500,000 followers. It's crazy. If you have 500,000 followers, you're king, you're queen. It's whatever you want. The value that you command is literally out of this world. I actually have this big vendetta against it. It's insane. But so not only did they reap the rewards of having a lot of followers early on, not only did they reap the rewards of then getting this giant influx of followers as it became mainstream, they are now generationally have changed their lives because they have this channel, this distribution, they have this asset. So that's on the social media side. But I really do believe it's similar to what's happening today, and that's why I say 6 to 8 months. You got 6 to 8 months to try to build something. Go, tinker, YouTube it. Find a partner. We're at the University of Waterloo. Guarantee you got someone who's coding. Okay? Build something that is solving a very specific need in a very specific niche. It could be churning out articles, once again, CrossFit, it could be anything. It could be, there's so many opportunities, and by all means, we can dive into this in the Q&A, but I'm getting the time warnings. Build today, because not only will you get the financial reward, potentially, of being a successful entrepreneur or a tinkerer or whatever you want to call it, I believe that once everybody dives in, I think you'll also get this entire level up, because now you're either already have a successful business, you're already considered an expert, and I don't know what the next step is after that, but in my opinion, it's the most exciting space to try to be getting ahead in, and I think it's very, very doable. So, wrapping it up, listen, I know this isn't the sexiest business in the world, okay? I built a company called True Local that was pretty much selling locally sourced meat products, connecting people to consumers, and the business model grew, and the values grew, and the things that were important grew over time. We really did have this deep purpose. I don't know what the purpose is of finding a hyper-specific app to create how to save 15-minute guides for the cleaning industry. I don't know. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, especially as a student, it's an amazing skill set to learn and develop. Because it's beautiful that you can turn it into its own business, taking AI and making it hyper-specific for something. But maybe you have bigger aspirations. Maybe you want to change the world. The skill sets that you needed to develop to turn AI into a business, whether it's a standalone business or it ends up being its own sub-strategy within your overall marketing strategy, these skills and this experience that you guys can develop, this is the future. This is where things are going. So I appreciate you guys letting me come up here and rant. This is the first time I've actually talked about any of this stuff publicly, but I don't know where things are going. I have my thoughts. I am actively playing in this space. I still can't code. Before this whole event, we had like fires 10 minutes up until, in the sense of trying to get this, even just this, to show up. So we have no technical skills at all, but we're still building an AI. So appreciate you guys listening. We've got the fireside chat. I do want to throw out there that on this link, I have put together a comprehensive AI resource guide, because once again, all I do really in my spare time, and my wife can attest to this, is scroll the internet to hear ideas and thoughts on whatever might potentially be interesting and cool. So I put together a guide all the way from beginner to advanced that will help you, guide you, everything from what ChatGPT is, to what these AI tools are, to how to build on it. So for any of you coders out there, I've found an amazing YouTube channel that discusses all that. And one more second, I just want to let people know we're building and we're hiring. So I'm looking for a technical lead, somebody who wants to come build some amazing products with us. If you've got any experience as a full stack developer, let me know. If you're currently building an AI, of course, would love to have a conversation with you. And if you're a content creator, please reach out. Would love to chat with you. So that's that. I appreciate you guys giving me the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mark. Wow. I had no idea I was going to talk about AI and ChatGPT. And I have to say that here on campus, it's all the rage and conversations, lots of meetings, and around that, this topic is just lots and lots of concern. You can imagine we are an academic institution, and the first thing that comes to mind is academic integrity or lack of integrity. And I'm with you on this, and I know, well, I don't know if there are any deans here, but we've secretly been trying, and it's been a lot of fun. So this is the fireside chat. You can just imagine there's a fire. We're not going to put a fire up there, but I do want to take this opportunity to introduce Matt. Matt Bondi is a good friend of ours, wonderful alum from the Faculty of Arts. He has a master's degree in political science, and he recently accepted the position of Vice President, National Public Affairs for Enterprise Canada. Congratulations. He's also a full-service national public affairs. This is a full-service national public affairs firm.
Yeah, not the cars one?
No. Thank you for clarifying. Matt joined Enterprise after 3 years at Communitech. So I think there's some folks here from Communitech and Neighbor Velocity. And he still maintains a role as senior advisor to the CEO. This fireside chat is going to be, how shall I say, fluid. So we're going to ask each other questions. Nobody's going to sort of be the boss of each other. So, and I have a feeling nobody's going to stick to the script either. So I'm going to be on my toes while I'm sitting. And but because I am hosting this event, and I am the dean, I get to ask the first question. How does that sound?
Sounds great to me.
So my first question is to Marc. So, Marc, you speak, and by the way, he didn't say very much about what's in the book, and I think that's a strategy so that you will have to get the book to read it. But you can, those of you that have, you can ask questions. So, you were a football player, and you might still be, I don't know, but in high school, no? Okay, but you do other thrill-seeking kinds of activities. And so in high school, and also you were a Warriors football player. We have our athletics, Rolly Webster here. So I don't know if you remember, Marc. My question is around athletics and your development as an entrepreneur. Is there any relationship? How did that get you through your academics, your sense of well-being, leadership? Like, what was the relationship between being a football player and leading you into entrepreneurship?
So like be a student athlete pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, like, I think that inherently as an athlete, you're a competitive individual. And I think that translates well, obviously, over to business. At the end of the day, my opinion is that founders are business athletes. Like, I think I actually talk about that in the book, so actually to reference the book. I think that founders are athletes of the business world. It's very difficult, it's very tough, and the stakes are higher than any sport, personally, in my opinion. So I think that when you think about trying to take what you've learned from being an athlete, that competitive nature translates over very well. But I think like from a more fundamental and more tactful approach, like when you're a student athlete, like you've got a lot to balance. Like you've got a lot of pressure, there's a lot of responsibility. So trying to balance your academic responsibilities with your athletic responsibilities, you know, it's going to teach you time management. It's going to teach you how to balance and prioritize. And these are, at the end of the day, as a founder, you're going to think this road is easy, and you're going to think it's, you know, something that is great to dream about. You know, when you're sitting there and you're looking at all the highlight reels of these articles being written about founders, it's the same thing as watching highlight reels of any sport, right? So I think that once you finally get into it and you realize, oh wow, these highlight reels, yeah, they're called highlight reels for a reason, and all of the other hard skills that come with, once again, being an athlete and trying to figure out how to manage all of these different aspects of your life, I think that just translates over really well. I think that, like, why do we play sports? Like, really? I don't know. I think the idea is that there's something calling us towards this other thing that we're willing to sacrifice a lot of our life towards and for. I don't know what it is. I think it's different for a lot of people. I would say it's probably the same for business. I think that there's this drive to maybe prove to yourself or prove to others that you can do it, and I think that those go hand in hand.
Just a quick follow-up before I pass it on to Matt to ask either you or me questions. You're into race car driving now, right?
Yes.
Now football is a team sport, and I can see now the relationship between team, the leadership, the sharing of the responsibility and all of that. But is there any relation? Why racing?
Yeah, my mom and my wife ask me that all the time. Look, never had a car growing up. Became obsessed with cars. They're beautiful, and at the end of the day, in my opinion, they're kind of like the pinnacle of human engineering that a consumer can buy. Like, if you want the latest tech, go buy the latest car. It's crazy. They're beautiful to look at. So all through university, I kind of developed this love of cars. Ironically, I'll never forget the time I fell in love with a car. It wasn't because of the looks, it was the sound. So I was in Montreal, and I didn't know anything about cars at the time. And I heard this like unbelievable roar. Like, it was just like this crazy, crazy sound. And I look back and there's like this big fat diesel truck, like just like lifted. Like, I'm like, all right, that sounds about right. Like, it makes sense that that's the sound. Light turns green and this truck pulls away, and it wasn't the truck that was making the noise. It was this car behind it, this Audi R8 behind it. And from that moment, I was like, oh my God, I love cars. So pretty much I fell in love with cars, could never afford a car. But then before I could afford a car, my love for cars got so high that I was like, well, I don't want to just look at them. I want to drive them too. So whenever I ever was, in a financial situation to be able to take a shot at this thing that I love, I decided that I wanted to do it. So that was 2 years ago. And now I'm kind of down the rabbit hole on that too. I'm a bit of an extremist. So if there's something that I like, I usually kind of go all in on it.
I got to jump in here. Can you all hear me okay? Up there? Yeah? So I don't find Marc relatable at all. Going back to the top of the thing. Marc is rich and really good looking, and he drives race cars. So it's been really fun getting to know him. And I don't know about you guys, but what an inspiration. And, when he was giving his talk, how much time did Marc spend on Marc? The 30 seconds-ish? When he was invited to do this, Marc went to work for you. And so, I don't know if he knows how to do a book launch right, because he's not really pushing his own stuff enough. But when Marc had the opportunity to come to the University of Waterloo Faculty of Health that he's so proud of, it was all about you guys. And so that says, I think, everything you need to know about the character of the guy behind all this success. And I think that's pretty cool.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
So something I love about how Marc talks about business is that I find it really relatable. We've gotten to know each other a little bit. We both had a lot of love growing up, not a lot of resources. We've kind of made our way a little bit. And you talk a lot about motivation. You talk a lot about grit. You talk a lot in your book about embracing just how freaking hard starting a business is, especially when you're going from 0 to 1. So can you talk a little bit about some of these values or virtues that don't get talked about too much in the current context? How you just got to own how hard it is. There's almost something kind of stoic about it.
Yeah, I think look, at the end of the day, business is tough, and it's cool to talk about using all of the latest and greatest tools to make it simpler and easier. But at the end of the day, it's simple. It's not easy. That's kind of my go-to. My team at True Local absolutely hates when I say that, and I know a couple of you are here right now. So look, I think that the thing that I do talk about in the book is that the single biggest thing being motivation. At the end of the day, 5 years into it, when you're waking up to bombs in your email and everything is going wrong and the whole world's on fire, you really need to have a good relationship with motivation to get you through that. And a lot of people walk around as though motivation is going to strike them like a lightning bolt. And that's just not the case, unfortunately. And I think we can all relate to the fact that when you're motivated, you're 10 times more productive. It's just the truth. If you wake up in the morning motivated, you can bang out in 2 hours what would take you an entire day. So don't you think it might make a lot of sense to increase the amount of time you spend in a motivated state? And you can do that through a lot of different ways. Once again, I got 3 chapters in the book just about this, but at the end of the day, to me, it's find a purpose. So the most important thing, have a purpose, something that makes you want to do it more than anything else, because that'll give you motivation in your darkest hour. That's the strong motivation. That's the motivation that'll be there when you're about to give up. But you can't snatch it out of midair. You can't just be like, okay, motivate me right now. That leads into the idea of engineering motivation. So the idea of you've got this like purpose-driven motivation that's there when you need it, but you need to create motivation out of thin air sometimes so that you can increase your exposure to motivation. And you can do that through things like content, like stop listening to that sad playlist when you're sad. Don't do it. So the content you listen to, the videos you watch, the movies you watch, the social media accounts you follow, the podcasts you listen to, you can do that through the people. Like, come on, that's the easiest one. I don't have to say much about that. There's people that you spend time with that you spend 2 minutes with them and they've inspired you for the next couple hours. And then there's your habits, the things that you do on a regular basis that make you feel proud. And it could be the dumbest of things. I have a lot of really dumb habits, but they make me feel proud of myself. And it makes me then get this little burst of motivation. So the thing about this engineering motivation, it only lasts a couple hours. You know what it's like. You watch a movie at night. Let's go watch the Avengers. Like, I'm going to take over the world. Screw Thanos. You wake up in the morning and you hit snooze. Motivation's gone. So that's that idea. And then really the last thing is that if you only work when you're motivated, you're beat. You're done. It's great to work when you're motivated, but you will not be motivated all of the time, no matter how deep your purpose is or no matter how much you engineer your motivation. If you only work when you're motivated, you're screwed. So you got to get used to working when you're not motivated as well. So that's actually what I think the most important thing is. That is actually part of the book too, by the way. So
yeah, that was a key part of the book, was talking about motivation and how to build a lifestyle that's going to support success, because you got to climb that mountain and it is really, really, really high. And I want to maybe ask Dean Liu to chime in a little bit here, because something that I've noticed is that you've almost got a little startup of your own, Dean, because it was the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences, and now it's the Faculty of Health, and that has been a really signal shift, and it's helped facilitate a lot of positive change under your leadership. So, there's a big, I think, emphasis on social entrepreneurship in particular in this faculty. So I don't want to let you out of here without saying a little bit about that.
Thanks, Matt, for that. I hadn't thought about that, thinking about the faculty or the changes in recent years as a startup, but essentially it's got the same ingredients, and it's got I come from, my parents had a family business, and so for me it was just a no-brainer. It just was ingrained in us, and it was part of our psyche to always look for the value and not just and beware of the cost of things. And we understood markup and all that because we were part of that chain of supply, right, and demand. So it was something I grew up with. And when I came to Waterloo, I also saw that this is where I should have come earlier had I known really what it was, or had I visited. I really feel at home. I feel that and I think that that's what a lot of the students like we may not teach about it in class or whatever. So the environment was right. It was ripe as well for change. I arrived when there was all this energy and momentum. It was just pre-pandemic to carry out and implement and finalize this strategic plan. So really, I came at the right time. And one of the signature commitments was to change the name. Now, you can imagine anywhere you go, to change a name of anything is nearly impossible, because you'll get 50% of the people who'll say, we don't want to change it. We like what we were. We like the acronym. What are you going to do with the acronym? We don't want to give it up. AHS, yeah. We had a lot of it was very, very challenging taking it through. Some of the folks that voted against it were our own, students as well. And then alumni. We went all over the world in our travels, and we interviewed people. And again, we got that 50%. But we just kept focusing on the future and give it a try and what are all the benefits. And we wanted to demonstrate. And very quickly, as soon as we changed the name, it was, I would say about 2 years now ago. It coincided with the pandemic, so I don't want to say it was all because of the name change, but I like to say partly it probably contributed. Our application pool more than doubled. I know during a pandemic, people become interested in health, right? But I would say that waned after a while when people start to see how difficult it is to be a healthcare professional, and then we start to see it drop in the nursing, whatever. But our faculty maintained that number, and depending on what program, it more than doubled in the application. And then another thing that happened, and we have to be careful of this. A success, we could be a victim of our own success, is that the entry grade rose from 80-something to 90s. And so while we're getting very, very highly qualified students, we're also very much aware that that may not be the pool that we want to encourage. We want individuals that are going to serve society well, right? Another signature commitment was to embark on social entrepreneurship from the experiential learning perspective. We have engineering here who we're always looking at as the gold standard, and they're so intimidating because they're so successful in business and they have the Conrad and on, and they are so generous in welcoming us to collaborate with them and to help us along. And now the entire campus is focused on health, so this is really a place for us all over campus. But we really feel strongly that it's not just about the tech, although now Marc's made a liar out of me because he talked only about tech today, about AI, but we can marry the two, AI and social entrepreneurship. But what we did was we started, an anonymous donor came to Sherry and I and said, similar to what Marc said when we had lunch with him, what would you like to do? How can I help you? And we're like, wow, it's true what they say about advancement. You really got to have your pitch ready, right? I was not ready so we said, well, our strat plan guided us in our response. We say, we want to start a fund, experiential learning fund. University of Waterloo is on the map in the world. We're internationally renowned for our co-op. But if you're a socially responsible and caring organization that is valued in improving the culture and also representing and providing services to the underrepresented, you're not going to have the funds to be able to recruit co-op students. And so this fund now has started. It's been a year. We've recruited 3 co-op students. They finished, and they work in House of Friendship. The other one is another name. Anyway, 2 others, but all focused on homelessness or housing, addictions, all of that. And so I think with that, and if we can bring in partners in engineering and computing science who can use AI to provide better data analysis, analytics, to provide better services and identify where geographically. There's so many questions now that we can tackle and make such a big difference in social entrepreneurship. And we would love to partner with our STEM fields and get Royal Bank, get the business sector to fund these so that they're not always relying on donor funds, right? So we feel it's our responsibility in health on this campus to push social entrepreneurship to be as important as the other entrepreneurships that we hear about.
Marc, that's how you plug, okay? I hope you took some notes. That's how you do it.
Well, one thing I do actually want to touch on that, I think this is in line, but listen, if I'm being completely honest, the reason I came to the University of Waterloo is because it was the only university that was offering health that didn't require math at the time. And it was the only university that I could get into. And it's crazy that it ends up being one of the greatest universities. And it just kind of goes to show that if that was a barrier for me, I never would have come to this school. I never would have been part of, at the time, what was called AHS. Now it's called the Faculty of Health. I never would have come up through this program. And once again, I have no tech background whatsoever. So you guys looking to bring in more people and make it more accessible, that I'm that product. If that wasn't an opportunity here, and if the faculty didn't exist, I never would have came to the University of Waterloo, and none of this would have really ever happened. So I appreciate that.
How about that? So, Sherry, you're probably going to cut us off soonish. We doing okay? All right. So Marc came, and he was fully loaded to give you advice. There's a bunch more advice in the book, but do you guys want to spend just a couple of minutes getting to know Marc a little bit? Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay. So, Mark, one of the things that really stuck out to me in the book was the importance of family for you. And I'm not trying to lay a tear trap for you here, but you've got some pretty special people over here. You talk about the influence of your mom and your dad and the acknowledgments, and just take us back a little bit to 10, 20 years ago, Mark, and what it was like to get some inspiration to do something really special with your career, and what kind of obstacles and challenges you had to tackle.
Yeah. Okay, so realistically, in high school, it was really touch and go for me. I literally would get dropped off by the cops at my mom's place because I would vandalize a mailbox or something stupid. It wasn't a big deal. I was just always getting in trouble. I think that when I look back on my childhood, I always say that the only reason I'm at where I'm at today is because of everything that happened in my life. And I think the one thing that I look back on is that my mom, I was always in trouble, but my mom would never shit on me. She'd always be like, look, you can do what you want to do and make those dumb decisions, but you got to live with them. I think at an early age, that kind of just taught me that you're really kind of in control of your outcomes. I think that when I was in high school, all of the teachers counted me out in the early days. I just had zero interest in learning anything that was being taught in high school. Zero interest. And I think a lot of teachers thought I was dumb because of it, or thought that I couldn't learn or whatever. And that wasn't the case. I just didn't care about it. And where probably a lot of parents would have tried to course correct or be like, hey, you got to, figure your stuff out. My mom was like, listen, this is a smart kid. He'll figure it out. He understands the repercussions of what happens. And I think that not being forced into something really has framed a lot of, not being forced to learn the things I didn't want to learn or do things I didn't want to do, really led to a lot of the thoughts that I have today, and probably a lot of the skills and the personality traits that allowed me to, be successful at 32. So, my family, played a huge role. We don't have a huge family. My dad, I love talking about this because we used to butt heads a lot growing up, but there was never anything he wouldn't do for me, not one thing. He would literally drive to Cornwall nobody knows where Cornwall is. So it's an hour outside of Ottawa, would drive to this tiny little town, pick me up, and drive me to play football in Ottawa 3 times a week. We didn't have a ton of cash. That's not an easy thing to do. So we used to butt heads a lot because he was a little bit more on the strict side. This is the way to do it. That's the way to do it. But it's crazy because at 32, I find myself more and more and more like him every day, which I don't know if that's a good thing yet or not, but I understand him a lot more because of it. So that's, I could go longer, but that's that.
I think we should probably allow the audience to ask a couple of questions.
We can do a few more minutes if you want to ask 1 or 2 more questions. Shorter questions.
Shorter questions. Well, how about I double dip and ask a question of both Matt and Mark. Matt, you've been at Communitech. It's a very impressive place, and amazing leadership in the entrepreneur space with our community as well as with the university. Question for both of you: what's the secret sauce for success in entrepreneurship, particularly in a fast-moving world that where opportunities come and go overnight?
So Matt, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Yeah, you beat me to that, Mark. So the short answer is I don't know. The slightly longer answer, and I can only speak to this based on my experience. I'm not a founder, but I have had the privilege of working with a lot of them, like Mark, at Communitech. And something that the Communitechs of the world do is they provide a lot of support. Think of them, I apologize, I'm an Army guy, so I speak Army sometimes. It's kind of like a force multiplier. So if you're a founder and it's like a Mark and an Irma and some friends, trying to put together a company, there's so many problems you have and so much you don't know. So being able to have those resources you can reach out to, and it's not just Communitech. The Accelerator Center is fantastic. Velocity is fantastic. The entrepreneurial resources at the Faculty of Health are fantastic. just developing muscle memory to ask for help and to get a sense of where you can get it. And that's, from a public policy perspective, that's the only reason why the Communitechs of the world exist. They're not important in and of themselves, and I say that as someone who loves the organization. They win when they help founders win. And so if you have these nodes in your community where you can tap into, and you know that if they don't have the answer, they can get it for you, just developing muscle memory so you know where to get the help, because you can't do it all by yourself, especially when you start.
That's very helpful. I know there are many new entrepreneurs and new founders in the audience, and that was one of the reasons we wanted to draw them here to this community, right? Mark.
So, look, like a couple things there. I'll keep it short. First of all, 51% luck. It's the truth. And I actually rationalize that because you could be the absolute 10 out of 10 founder with the 10 out of 10 investors and go raise $1 billion, and a pandemic can happen, and your business goes to zero. So at the end of the day, luck actually is a stronger impact than anything else. So get past that, and we'll keep the conversation going. The next thing, and I do talk about this in the book, is that there is no silver bullet. Like, there's no how do you be successful as a founder and entrepreneur, because what works for you is different than what works for you, which is different than what works for you. It's different for everybody, and it's going to be even more complex when you layer on your skill sets and your resources that you have at your disposal. So the one thing I would say is that if you want to be successful in business, the mindset you should walk into it as is to understand that you're not a CEO. Okay, I know it's nice to say, sounds great. You're not a CTO, you're not a CMO, you're not a president, you're not a salesperson. You have one job, and that's to be a professional problem solver. That's it. It doesn't matter what problem it is, but they're going to come to you every single day. And the better you get at solving every problem that comes your way, the better you'll be as being a founder, which therefore means that you will have an increased chance of success. And that, to me, is I would say, the number one thing when it comes to being starting a business.
That's pretty insightful stuff. So, Saba, where's the queue for people who want to? Is it line up, or are the mics going to go to them? Mike's going to go to them? Okay, so we're going to get to audience Q&A, so think of all your toughest questions for Marc, please. But Marc, put yourself in a position where, we always talk about the elevator pitch in business and entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. So you've got, a room full of folks here. If they had you for 30 seconds in an elevator, they're starting to found a company. They've got Marc Lafleur for 30 seconds, and they say, just what do I do? Like, what's the one thing? What's the one thing? What would you leave them with?
I would say that, honestly, it's not sexy or anything, but just don't overcomplicate it. I think that a lot of people spend a year on a logo. You know what I mean? And that's because they're overcomplicating it. Oh my God, if the logo is a little bit off, then nobody's gonna come. No, nobody's gonna come to you with a product. That's why nobody's coming. So don't overcomplicate it. Understand that these things are actually very simple in terms of how to launch a company. It's just how well do you execute on them. Once again, not to plug AI, but right now, if I was starting a business tomorrow, I would look at how can I develop the skills to use these AI products to 10x my output. Because that's all it is. People are always freaking out about, we're going to lose our jobs. Oh my God. Well, no. You're not going to lose your jobs to AI, but the person who is really, really good at using AI might have a good chance of, maximizing their output. So I would say spend some time, figure out how you can become a pro at that. And once again, to the social media aspect, it's kind of like social media back in the day. People used to be on social media and they would kind of treat it like a toy. They'd be like, oh, you're a social media manager? Okay, we'll pay you part-time, this and that. If you actually are on social media and you run a business and you have someone manage your social media, that's a full-time job that is massively respectable. And there is a big difference between the top tier and the bottom tier. So what I would actually say today is if you've got a problem that you're passionate about, there's two things. Either follow your heart, find a purpose, and build a business around that, or there's nothing wrong with chasing financial freedom, in my opinion. And I think it's very taboo to talk about. But if you don't know what you want to do next, then just develop the skills that'll align with you having a better chance of finding financial freedom until you figure out what you want your purpose to be. And then you can deploy that skill set into making your purpose a reality. That's honestly what I would say, I think.
Thanks.
Who's doing this one?
Stand up.
Who has a question?
Oh, okay. Is it on? Okay. Who has a question? Who has the first question?
I see you up there.
This gentleman right here.
The
Yes,
hands that went up right away are very concerning to me. So let's, yeah.
I'm standing for this. You can hear me. Like Matt, I'm going to publicly declare my man crush for Mark. Mark and I met at a night when he was sharing failures to help other people succeed. But the thing that I like about you, Mark, is you're likable. You're intense. There's no question about it. But there's a lot of CEOs and founders out there that are not nice. There's a little bit of a jerk label attached to them. So what advice do you have for those in the room here that their ego's bigger than anything else? How do they check it, and how do they become more like you?
Yeah, like you're like you work for your team. If you understand that, then it's very hard to have an ego, right? You can have an ego with other founders if you want. You can have an ego with investors. You can have an ego with VCs. But you become very humble when you realize that people don't have to work for you. And there's a good chance that if you are expecting these things from people, like what entitlement do you have for that? You're probably underpaying them in the first place, especially if you're in a startup. So why would they ever go above and beyond for you? And when you realize that you need to respect them and make sure that not only do they have all the tools to be successful in their job, if they're not happy in their life as well, like why are they there? So I think that like that humbles you a lot. Like I came from sales, right? And I went from both sides. Like I worked direct sales. Sounds cool. I sold meat door to door. I literally slung meat. Like I was a meat slinger. So not very sexy, but it was direct sales. It was like us versus like all of the sales guys in the group. How many did you get? Shit. Okay, I need to do better. It was very competitive, big egos. And you think that, and once again, probably a lot that came from being an athlete. And that serves you well as an individual contributor. That serves you well as being part of a sales team. But I was fortunate at 24, I got to manage. I went from sales to management, and I learned very quickly that everything changes. So I would say that, look, if you've got it's okay to have an ego. Don't change who you are. Like if you're a founder, you have to have an ego. But choosing and mastering how you deploy that ego, that to me is kind of the make or break between founders or CEOs. A big difference between a CEO and a founder. So it's the big difference between the ones that make it and have massive teams that support the vision is because they know that their CEO or their founders are going to support them versus a CEO that they've never heard of that walks in there, shakes hands, kisses babies, and is out later and expects all of these things to happen. So that's like probably the way I would frame that answer. So.
I'm going to follow up on something you said just before this question. It's about purpose and getting rich. And I'm thinking here of a specific person who wants to be rich. And just thinking about the way you said you didn't do too good in high school because you didn't care. And then you ended up going to university, right? Do you think you would have chosen a different route today? And what would you say to people who are kind of, thinking about where to go and which route to take to get rich? Or to, be successful in entrepreneurship? Because I left my university here, but that's not necessarily, and I'm not saying that's the only way to go, but you did end up going to university, right? And how does that feed into where you are right now?
I think a huge part of who I am today and part of my success was going to university. I learned a lot from going on my own. Once again, I grew up 5 hours away from here. It was the first time I ever got out on my own. I got to make relationships. I had pressure laid on me before that I'd never had. It hardened me into being a better founder and a better operator. So listen, there's no one size fits all, okay? You'd have to answer that question on an individual basis. If someone came to me and said, hey, you know what, I just want to develop life skills. I want to, loosely touch onto something I'm passionate about. I want to make connections and learn how to be a human. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. The university is the best place for that. There's also a subset of people who know exactly what they want to do and exactly what they want to for. Probably makes a lot of sense to go to university. But I would make an argument that there's probably a lot of kids that understand exactly what they want to do and they've realized that they can fulfill their purpose on YouTube or on TikTok or using AI or building in Web3 or any one of these exciting, sexy, but who knows what'll happen tools. And if they feel very confident, I just believe in supporting people. There's no right or wrong way to do it. So if someone wants to go do something and they feel very passionate about it, that's the right channel for them. If someone is questioning what they should do and really doesn't know, then I would probably go in the direction that has the best chance to lead them towards it. And at the end of the day, university, once again, like in my opinion, your university or college or post-secondary provides tremendous value. Like look at me here today, right? You just kind of made the point yourself. So I think it's a one-to-one basis. I have zero regrets, and I'm now deep friends with the university and the faculty, and that's, that's pretty much it.
Great chat, Mark. That was awesome. So my question, at the beginning you talked about the three things, in terms of the old way of business, right? Like drive traffic, convert traffic, and retain customers. I'm just curious, has that changed now with AI, influencing the way we do it? Maybe which ones it's changed or what the new top three are?
Yeah, so it's similar to when people ask, what's the silver bullet in business? There is no silver bullet. That's the thing. Like, sorry if you came for that. No lecture you go to is going to teach you the silver bullet. What is the silver bullet, though, is understanding all of the 100 different levers that are at your disposal and then mastering how to fine-tune all of those things. So it's not that this drive traffic, convert traffic, retain customers is dead. It's just no longer as efficient and as successful as it was before. And a lot of people will say, if you really want to dive into it, it's because at the core of that drive traffic, convert traffic, and retain customers, at the core that was paid advertising. It was the fact that you could go online and really master the ads you put out and understand the audience you were targeting. And really, as long as you were getting customers at a cost that you were comfortable with, you could just keep plowing investment dollars into that to drive more traffic, to capture more of that traffic and retain more of them. It still exists today. It's just you can't scale it, in my opinion. You can't scale a company the way you could back in the day. If you're a rock star company with absolutely the best product market fit and killer app, what strategy you use is going to be successful. But True Local, at the end of the day, was a commodity company in the sense that we sold food online. We didn't break and revolutionize any new business model. We had a purpose in the sense that we wanted to connect people to local producers. We put an amazing team together that was then able to execute on it, and we leveraged and doubled down on the best practice, in my opinion, of the e-commerce world, which is traffic, website conversion, and then diving into retaining customers. Moving forward into this kind of like AI world where really the fundamental change is that people can now just output so much more content. So much. It's insane how much stuff you can put out there. I think what's gonna happen is this resurgence in SEO. So search engine optimization. It never went anywhere. It's always been there, but it's kind of been in the background. Nobody likes to talk about it because it's like this black box wizardry. And it's slow, but it's there and it's powerful. I think that now that you can churn out content like crazy, I think SEO is going to make a big comeback. And I also think that this idea of narrative-based newsletters are going to be at the forefront. So historically, in the same era of creating an e-commerce business, there was these other people that were really doubling down on just doing things like creating a newsletter. So like, Morning Brew or The Hustle or all these, there's a great podcast you can listen to. It's called My First Million. I'd highly recommend it. And they were just content generators. They would create content, build up an audience on their mailing list. They get 100,000 or 1 million subscribers, and then next thing you know, they monetize it. That has always been kind of like, this is a negative term, but like it was like the dark child of business. It was way cooler to double down on e-commerce and paid advertising and putting $100,000 into Facebook. But this form of great content attracting an audience that you can then continue to add value to, that's making a huge comeback in AI as well. So it's kind of like, it's there, it exists, but the things that are at the top of the rung are changing. So we can spend a lot of time diving into that, though, at some point.
We only have one more question, and then we're going to wrap up because apparently there's a classroom, and they kind of want to get in eventually. But this young woman up here, I see you're...
Similar to the question about ego, I'm curious if you have any advice for the introverts in the crowd who might have a passion, great product, but struggle to put themselves out there.
Okay, I like this one. How much time do I got? Because I will accommodate that.
4 minutes.
Ooh. So when you ask for an answer, you don't like the answer. Listen, believe it or not, and you're all gonna be like, wait, like I am an introvert, okay? You get your energy, yeah, my mom says yes. You get your energy from being alone versus being in crowd. That's an introvert. As an introvert, you get your energy from being alone versus energy from being in crowd. This is very, like, you've got to be on, you've got to do your thing. So listen, that is part of it, in my opinion, in business. You can absolutely be a founder who doesn't have that, like, hey, everybody, let's rally the troops and let's go ahead and set the world on fire. But the thing is that you need to then develop your own leadership style. So maybe you have more one-on-ones than would normally be accepted in a company, and because people now are trying to cut down on meetings left, right, and center. But maybe you have to have these because you're able to thrive in a one-on-one environment, because you maybe are not this person who's like, oh my God, like, let me transfer my enthusiasm to you to go and accomplish this goal. But maybe you're a really good problem solver. Maybe you can hear someone's challenges and be like, you know what, okay, write it out, and then send it back to them in whatever way. It's an advantage to go and be able to shout your thoughts to either your team or to a crowd. But at the end of the day, once again, if you are a professional problem solver, you'll realize, you'll be like, okay, these aren't the things that I'm good at. Here are some things that I am good at. And you can find a way to adapt that to your business. So once again, I would say that it's a difficult thing to understand. There is an advantage to being able to share your ideas and get people excited. But it's definitely not something that you cannot be successful in if you don't have that skill. So I'd recommend just doing things, once again, find out what you are comfortable with and try to mold the business in a way that it can still run successfully, even though you're not doubling down on this one skill that, you know, is known to provide success. And then really you're just leveling it out to be like, okay, I have this disadvantage potentially, but I'm going to change the business a little bit so that it can meet me at this level. There will be an intersect where it's like you are now pivoting the business in a way that is detrimental to the business to accommodate you, versus you rising up or you learning a new skill or you developing some way of meeting the business where it needs to be. So that's kind of how I would say that. Once again, definitely understand, is it an introvert in terms of you're shy, or is it an introvert in terms of you get energy from being alone and being around people can be draining? But we can talk about that too. I would love to talk about that because it's interesting.
Thanks, Mark.